The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the quiet suburban street where the Taylor family lived. Inside their cozy home, the living room buzzed with the controlled chaos of packing for a long-awaited vacation. Suitcases lay open like clamshells, brimming with neatly folded clothes, sunscreen bottles, and Elijah's favorite blue swim goggles, which he clutched tightly as he bounced on his toes. "Mom, did you pack my shark swim trunks?" the 8-year-old asked, his voice bright with anticipation, eyes wide as he imagined diving into the resort's sparkling pool. Samantha Taylor, a seasoned FBI agent who'd carefully hidden her badge and gun in a locked safe for this trip, smiled warmly at her son. "Right here, sweetie," she said, holding up the shark-patterned trunks before tucking them into his suitcase alongside extra towels and a travel-sized bottle of SPF 50. She double-checked the packing list, her hands moving with the precision of someone used to high-stakes missions. Though today her mission was simpler, ensuring her family's first real vacation in years went smoothly. Malcolm, her husband, and a high school history teacher emerged from their bedroom. His broad shoulders relaxed for once, free from the weight of grading papers or coaching debate club. "Everyone almost ready," he called, effortlessly hoisting their heaviest bag, his voice carrying the steady calm that always grounded Samantha. "Almost done," she replied, zipping up the last suitcase with a satisfying tug. "Elijah, honey, one last check of your room. Make sure you didn't forget anything important." Elijah scampered off his sneakers, squeaking against the hardwood floor, and Malcolm stepped closer, wrapping his arms around Samantha from behind. "You okay?" he asked softly, sensing the faint tension in her shoulders, a telltale sign she was overthinking. "Just want everything to be perfect," she murmured, leaning into him, her short-cropped curls brushing his chin. "It's been so long since we've had this a real break, just us." Malcolm pressed a kiss to her temple. "It will be," he promised, his tone firm, with the confidence of a man who'd spent years supporting his wife's demanding career while keeping their family strong. No work, no stress, just us and Elijah making memories. Elijah bounded back, clutching his tablet. "Got everything," he announced, and they began loading the car, Malcolm arranging the bags in the SUV's trunk like a master Tetris player, each piece fitting perfectly. Samantha did a final sweep of the house, checking windows and locks, a habit from her FBI training that never quite left her even on vacation. Elijah settled into his favorite spot in the back seat, already engrossed in a game on his tablet, his goggles dangling from his wrist. As they pulled away from their home, the suburban streets felt peaceful, almost too quiet, and Elijah pressed his face against the window, watching their neighborhood fade. "How long till we get there?" he asked, the first of what Samantha knew would be many such questions. "About 4 hours." Champ Malcolm answered, adjusting the rear-view mirror to catch his son's grin. "We'll stop for lunch along the way." Samantha pulled out their carefully planned route, a scenic drive avoiding major cities designed to keep the trip relaxed. The car filled with their road trip playlist, classic soul for Malcolm, modern pop for Samantha, and a few cartoon theme songs for Elijah that made them all laugh. 2 hours in, hunger gnawed at them, and they pulled into a roadside diner, its neon open sign flickering in the late morning sun. The parking lot was half full, mostly pickup trucks, with local plates, their chrome glinting under the light. As the Taylors stepped inside, the bell above the door jingled cheerfully, but the chatter in the diner dropped like a stone. Heads turned, eyes lingered a few too long, others quickly averted. Samantha squeezed Elijah's hands and guiding him to a booth near the window. Her posture calm but alert, scanning the room without moving her head. Malcolm slid in across from them, his expression neutral, though Samantha noticed the slight tightening of his jaw. Their waitress, A middle-aged woman with a tight ponytail approached her, smile thin and not quite reaching her eyes. "Welcome to Betty's. What can I get y'all to drink?" she asked, her pen hovering over her notepad. "Sodas for all of us," Samantha said, keeping her tone friendly, though she felt the weight of whispers from nearby tables. Elijah buried his face in the kids' menu, coloring a cartoon burger with a crayon, his earlier excitement dimming under the scrutiny. "Look, they have chocolate chip pancakes," Samantha said, brightly pointing at the menu to distract him. His face lit up, and for a moment the tension eased. Their food arrived suspiciously fast, as if the kitchen wanted them gone. The pancakes were fluffy, the burgers juicy, but the meal felt rushed, the staff's eyes darting toward them too often. Malcolm kept the conversation light, talking about the resort's pool and the lake they'd swim in, but his hand found Samantha's under the table, their fingers intertwining in silent solidarity. "This place is supposed to have a waterfall by the pool," he told Elijah, who perked up, his eyes sparkling again. "Can I jump off it?" he asked, and Samantha chuckled, shaking her head. "We'll see what the rules say, sweetie." They finished quickly, paid, and left the bell jingling again as the diner's chatter resumed behind them. Back on the road, the tension from the diner faded, replaced by rolling hills and the promise of lake country. The landscape shifted suburban sprawl, giving way to lush greenery, the late afternoon sun painting the sky in warm oranges and pinks. When they pulled up to Lakeside Resort, the building loomed grandly against the waterfront, its glass windows gleaming like mirrors. Luxury cars dotted the parking lot, and well-dressed guests strolled the manicured grounds, their designer sunglasses catching the light. At the front desk, the clerk, a young woman with a tight bun, offered a professional smile that faltered slightly as she looked at them. "Welcome to Lakeside Resort," she said, her tone clipped eyes flicking between their faces and the reservation screen. "I have your booking, Mr. Taylor." Malcolm handed over his credit card, his expression calm, though Samantha noticed the clerk's fingers pause on the keyboard, her gaze lingering on their IDs. Samantha had insisted on keeping her FBI credentials hidden. No badge, no special treatment, just a normal family vacation. "Room 342, third floor, Lakeview," the clerk said finally, sliding their key cards across the counter. "Please note, our pool and facility rules are strictly enforced." The words felt pointed, but Samantha kept her face neutral, thanking her politely. They rolled their luggage through plush hallways, the carpet muffling their steps, but other guests edged to the far side as they passed, their polite smiles masking discomfort. Their suite was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the shimmering lake. Elijah ran to the glass, pressing his hands against it. "Can we go swimming now?" he begged, his voice echoing in the room. "Let's unpack first," Samantha said, already organizing clothes into drawers with her usual efficiency. Malcolm did a subtle sweep of the room, checking corners under furniture, a habit he'd picked up from years of living with an FBI agent. "Old habits," he muttered with a grin when Samantha caught him. After unpacking, they decided to explore the resort. Elijah practically bounced down the hallway, his energy infectious after the long drive. The resort's interior was stunning: crystal chandeliers, expensive artwork, marble floors, but Samantha couldn't ignore the overwhelming whiteness of the guests and staff. The few employees of color they saw were in housekeeping or kitchen roles, their eyes downcast as they worked. At the pool area, Elijah pressed his face against the glass doors, mesmerized by the massive pool sparkling under the evening light, its waterfall feature cascading gently. "Please, can we swim now?" he pleaded. "Dinner first," Samantha said firmly, though her heart ached at his eager expression. "We need something proper after that diner lunch." They continued their tour, passing a sleek gym, a spa Samantha mentally noted for later, and sitting areas with lake views. Throughout, they noticed subtle glances, staff whispering, guests stepping aside. At the hotel restaurant, a grand space with white tablecloths and soft jazz, the hostess led them to a table, her smile professional but her eyes darting to other guests' reactions. Samantha scanned the menu. "The grilled chicken looks good," she said, then pointed to the kids' menu for Elijah. "They've got mac and cheese, and you can get chocolate milk." Elijah's legs swung under the table, his excitement returning. Malcolm, however, was distracted, his gaze settling on the bar area. Two men sat there, their casual clothes not quite hiding their law enforcement posture. The older one, with a weathered face and cold eyes, was Detective Greg Marks. Samantha recognized him from an FBI briefing about local police with a history of complaints. The younger one, Officer Riley, exuded aggressive confidence, his posture screaming rookie with something to prove. Both were nursing drinks, their eyes flicking toward the tailor's table. "Everything okay?" Samantha asked quietly, noticing Malcolm's tension. "Fine," he replied, keeping his voice low. "Just some local cops at the bar. Nothing to worry about." Their server, a young woman with a genuine smile, took their orders efficiently, though Samantha noticed her glance nervously at the officers. Throughout dinner, the weight of their stares was palpable. But the tailors focused on Elijah's chatter about swimming plans and the resort's mini-golf course. The food was excellent, perfectly grilled chicken for Samantha, a juicy steak for Malcolm, and Elijah declared the mac and cheese almost as good as Mom's. But the officer's attention made the meal feel heavy, less enjoyable than it should have been. As they stood to leave, Samantha heard a low mutter from the bar, followed by a chuckle. Malcolm's hand rested gently but firmly on Elijah's shoulder, guiding them out without looking back. Back in their suite, the tension eased slightly. Elijah pulled out his shark swim trunks, laying them carefully on a chair. "Ready for tomorrow," he announced proudly. Samantha kicked off her shoes, sinking onto the king-sized bed with a sigh. "Come here, baby," she called to Elijah, pulling him into a hug, breathing in his familiar scent. Malcolm stood by the window, gazing at the moonlit lake, its silver surface calming but not enough to erase the officer's stares from his mind. "Daddy, will you swim with me tomorrow?" Elijah asked, breaking his thoughts. Malcolm turned, his expression softening. "First thing after breakfast, champ," he promised. They went through their bedtime routine, Elijah brushing his teeth, Samantha laying out his clothes, Malcolm checking the door lock and drawing the curtains. Elijah begged to sleep in the big bed with them just for the first night. "It's a special vacation," he pleaded, giving them his best puppy dog eyes. Samantha and Malcolm exchanged a glance, then smiled. Just for tonight, Samantha agreed. They settled in Elijah, snug between them, his excitement about swimming giving way to soft snores. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant lapping of lake waves. Samantha lay awake a moment longer, her FBI instincts whispering that this vacation might not be as peaceful as they'd hoped. The officers' faces lingered in her mind, their cold eyes a warning she couldn't ignore. She glanced at her sleeping family, her resolve hardening. Whatever came, she was ready to protect them, not just as a mother and wife, but as an agent trained to fight for justice. The morning sun spilled through the suite's curtains, painting golden stripes across the plush carpet as the Taylor family stirred. 8-year-old Elijah was already up, vibrating with excitement as he slipped into his shark-patterned swim trunks, his blue goggles dangling from his wrist. "Mom, can we go to the pool now?" he asked, bouncing on the edge of the king-sized bed. Samantha, her FBI instincts already humming beneath her calm exterior, smiled and ruffled his hair. "Soon, sweetie. Let's get some sunscreen on you first." She glanced at Malcolm, who was adjusting his tie in the mirror, his brow furrowed. "You sure you can't come with us?" Elijah asked, his voice hopeful as he watched his father prepare to leave. Malcolm's expression softened, but Samantha caught the flicker of concern in his eyes. "Sorry, champ," he said, kneeling to meet Elijah's gaze. "I've got a few errands to run, but I'll join you later." "Okay, you and Mom have fun." Samantha knew better. Those errands meant checking on a local contact for his school's history project, but they'd agreed not to discuss details in front of Elijah. She helped her son slather sunscreen over his arms, neck, and ears, her movements deliberate, masking the unease that had settled in her gut since last night's dinner. "Ready, baby?" she asked, shouldering a beach bag stuffed with towels, water bottles, and a novel she doubted she'd read. "Ready?" Elijah chirped already halfway to the door, his tablet tucked under his arm. The pool area was quiet this early, the air fresh with the scent of chlorine and blooming jasmine. A few elderly couples lounged on chairs flipping through magazines, while two women swam lazy laps in the deeper end. The water sparkled under the morning light, the waterfall feature creating a soothing rhythm that should have felt inviting. Samantha claimed 2 chairs in a sunny spot, spreading out their towels. "Remember the rules," she told Elijah, her voice firm but warm. "No running, no diving in the shallow end, and stay where I can see you." "I know, Mom," he said, rolling his eyes, but grinning as he eased into the water via the steps. His face lit up at the perfect temperature, and he began paddling confidently, his small frame cutting through the water with ease. Samantha settled into her chair, pulling out her book, but keeping one eye on Elijah, her training making it impossible to fully relax. He was a strong swimmer for his age, his strokes sure, and his joy was infectious. Several older guests smiled at his enthusiasm, their expressions softening the sterile elegance of the resort. The peaceful moment lasted about 20 minutes before a shadow fell over her chair. A young staff member in a crisp polo shirt approached his smile, tight and forced. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his voice overly polite. "Could I see your room key? Just a routine check." Samantha's eyes flicked to the other guests. No one else had been approached. She kept her tone neutral, reaching into her bag. "Of course," she said, handing over the keycard, watching his face as he scanned it with a handheld device. "Thank you, Mrs. Taylor. Enjoy your stay," he said, but his eyes lingered too long and the air shifted heavier now. Elijah, oblivious, continued swimming, splashing happily as he tried an underwater somersault. Samantha tried to return to her book, but the words blurred, her focus split between her son and the growing unease in her chest. That's when she noticed them, Detective Greg Marks and Officer Riley, now in swim trunks, emerging from the men's changing room across the pool. They claimed chairs directly opposite her, their positioning deliberate, giving them a clear view of her and Elijah. Marks sprawled with calculated casualness, his weathered face unreadable, while Riley sat forward, elbows on knees, his eyes locked on Elijah's every move. Neither entered the water. Samantha's heart rate ticked up, but she kept her face neutral, her training kicking in. Observe, assess, stay calm. The temperature seemed to drop, despite the warming sun. Other guests began to notice the tension. The elderly couples whispered their magazines forgotten, and the 2 swimmers climbed out, toweling off, and leaving without a word. Elijah's new friend, a boy about his age, was called away by his mother, who shot Samantha an apologetic glance. "Mom, watch this," Elijah called, executing another somersault, water splashing around him. Samantha clapped, forcing a smile, but her eyes never left the officers. "Getting tired, baby?" she asked, hoping to draw him closer, but Elijah shook his head, diving under again. The officers maintained their surveillance for another 15 minutes, their stares a physical weight. Samantha refused to be intimidated. She was a paying guest, a mother, an FBI agent with every right to be here. Finally, Elijah paddled to the pool's edge, his small hands gripping the rim. "I'm hungry," he announced, water dripping onto the concrete. "Okay, let's dry off," and Samantha began, but the officers were already moving. Marks led his steps, deliberate Riley flanking him with a swagger that screamed aggression. They stopped just feet from her chair, their shadows falling over Elijah as he climbed out, sensing the shift and pressing close to his mother. "Ma'am," Marks said, his tone falsely pleasant, loud enough to draw every eye in the pool area. "We're going to need to see some identification." Riley rocked on his heels, adding, "and your room key, just to verify you're supposed to be here." Samantha's face grew hot as guests stared, some pulling out phones to record. Elijah's wet body trembled against her, soaking her cover-up. "I showed my room key to your staff less than an hour ago," she said evenly, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "Well, now you'll show it to us," Marks replied, his smile, cold eyes glinting with malice, "along with ID. Unless there's a problem." Samantha took a deep breath, channeling her training to stay composed. "I have both right here," she said, reaching for her bag while keeping Elijah close. Her fingers brushed the key card and her driver's license, but as she pulled them out, Marks snatched them, examining them with exaggerated scrutiny. "These could be fake," he declared loudly, ensuring the crowd heard. "They're not fake," Samantha said firmly, her pulse racing. "As I said, your staff already verified." Riley stepped closer, his face red with barely contained anger. "This place is for paying guests," he spat. "We've had enough of your kind causing trouble." Gasps rippled through the onlookers' phones, still recording. Elijah clung tighter to Samantha, his voice small but fierce. "Don't talk to my mom like that." Marks's hand shot out, grabbing Samantha's arm roughly. "That's it. You're leaving now." "Let go of me," she demanded, trying to pull away her training, screaming to de-escalate, but her maternal instincts flaring. Riley moved behind them, shoving her toward the pool steps. "Move it, or we'll make you." Elijah's eyes filled with tears, his grip on her tightening. Guests murmured in protest, but no one stepped forward. Hotel staff hung back, watching nervously. Samantha's mind raced. Her badge was in the room, her weapon locked away, but she didn't need them. Years of FBI training surged to the surface. "I said let go." She repeated, her voice low and dangerous. With a swift motion, she twisted her arm free from Marks's grip, stepping between him and Elijah. Riley lunged, aiming to grab her shoulder, but Samantha sidestepped, using his momentum to push him off balance. He stumbled, catching himself on a chair. "Enough," she snapped, her voice cutting through the silence. She pulled her phone from her bag, revealing a glimpse of her FBI credentials tucked inside. "I'm Special Agent Samantha Taylor, FBI. Stand down, or you'll be arrested for assault." The pool area froze. Marks's face paled, his hand dropping. Riley's aggressive stance faltered, his eyes darting to Marks for guidance. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, phones still recording, as Samantha stood tall, shielding Elijah. "This isn't over," Mark muttered, but he backed off, pulling Riley with him. "We'll be checking your story." They retreated to their chairs, grabbing their belongings, and heading toward the changing rooms. Samantha's heart pounded, but she kept her composure, kneeling to hug Elijah. "You okay, baby?" she whispered, feeling his trembling ease. He nodded, eyes wide but trusting. "You were awesome, Mom." She managed to smile, her mind already racing. This wasn't just harassment. It felt coordinated, deliberate. She needed to know more. As the crowd dispersed, some guests approached cautiously, offering supportive nods. That was wrong. "What they did," an elderly woman whispered, patting Samantha's arm. "We saw it all." Samantha thanked her, guiding Elijah back to their chairs to gather their things. She texted Malcolm trouble at the pool. Cops involved. I handled it, but we need to talk. Back in their suite, Elijah clung to her side as she locked the door, her FBI instincts in overdrive. Malcolm returned within the hour, his face grim as she recounted the incident. They targeted you because we're black, he said, his voice tight with anger, and they didn't know who you are. Samantha nodded, her jaw set. They're not just rogue cops. This feels bigger, organized. I'm calling my field office. She stepped onto the balcony for privacy, dialing her supervisor. Agent Taylor, the voice on the other end said. What's going on? She detailed the confrontation, emphasizing the officer's aggression and the crowd's recordings. I need background on 2 local cops, Greg Marks and Officer Riley. Something's off. Her supervisor promised to run checks and send backup if needed, but urged caution. You're on vacation, Sam. Don't make yourself a target. Too late, she thought, hanging up. Back inside, Elijah was curled up on the couch, his tablet forgotten. Why did they do that, Mom? He asked, his voice small. Samantha sat beside him, pulling him close. Some people judge others based on how they look, sweetie, but they're wrong, and we're going to make sure they don't get away with it. Malcolm joined them, his hand resting on her shoulder. I'll stay with you both tomorrow, he promised. No more errands. That evening, as they prepared for dinner, a folded note slid under their door. Samantha's stomach dropped as she picked it up, unfolding it to reveal block letters, "Get out while you can." She showed it to Malcolm, her eyes narrowing. They're scared, she said quietly. They know I'm onto them. Malcolm's face hardened. Then they were about to learn they picked the wrong family. Elijah, sensing the tension, hugged his mother tightly. Are we safe, Mom? We are, she said firmly, her FBI training steadying her voice. Because we're together, and I'm not letting anyone hurt you. She tucked the note into her bag, evidence, she thought, and began planning her next move. The resort's elegance now felt like a facade hiding something rotten. As they settled in for the night, Samantha checked the locks, her mind racing. Marks and Riley weren't acting alone, she was sure of it. And she was going to find out who was pulling their strings. The dawn light filtered through the heavy curtains of the Taylor's suite, doing little to lift the weight of the previous day's events. Samantha sat at the small dining table, her laptop, open eyes, scanning through encrypted emails from her FBI field office. The threatening note from last night lay sealed in a plastic bag beside her, its block letters burned into her memory. Get out while you can. Elijah slept fitfully on the pull-out couch, his small form curled under a blanket, while Malcolm stood by the window, his silhouette tense as he watched the resort grounds below. Anything from your team? He asked, his voice low, to avoid waking their son. Samantha nodded her fingers, pausing on the keyboard. Preliminary background on Marks and Riley. Marks has a string of complaints, excessive force intimidation, but they all vanished before investigation. Riley's newer, but he's got a history of disciplinary issues from his last precinct. They're dirty, Malcolm, and someone's protecting them. She closed her laptop, her jaw tight. I'm meeting a contact today. A reporter named Cassie Flores. She reached out after the pool incident went viral. Malcolm turned, his brow furrowed. Can you trust her? I don't know yet, Samantha admitted. But she's been digging into local corruption. If she's got something solid, it could break this open. Elijah stirred, blinking awake. Mom, are we going swimming today? His voice was hopeful, but quieter than usual. The pool incident still lingering in his eyes. Samantha forced a smile, crossing to kneel beside him. Not today, sweetie. How about an adventure instead? There's an amusement park we passed on the way here. His face brightened slightly, though the spark wasn't quite there. "Can Dad come?" Malcolm joined them, ruffling Elijah's hair. "I'm staying here, champ. Got to keep an eye on things, but you and Mom are going to have a blast. Get me one of those giant pretzels, okay?" Elijah nodded, managing a small grin. After breakfast, Samantha and Elijah headed to the amusement park, a sprawling complex of roller coasters and carnival games just outside town. Samantha kept her phone close, her FBI training making her hyper-aware of their surroundings. The park was crowded with families, the air filled with laughter and the scent of cotton candy, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Elijah tugged her toward the carousel, his excitement returning as he climbed onto a painted horse. "Look, Mom," he called, waving as the ride spun. She smiled, snapping a photo, but her eyes scanned the crowd. A security guard near the ticket booth spoke into his radio, his gaze lingering on them. At the concession stand, the server's smile vanished as she handed over their change, her fingers brushing Samantha's with unnecessary force. Mommy Elijah whispered during lunch, his nachos untouched. "Why are those people taking pictures of us?" Samantha followed his gaze to a group of teenagers quickly lowering their phones. Her heart raced, but she kept her voice calm. "They're probably just tourists, baby. Try these nachos. They're really good." Elijah's observation skills, sharp for his age, unnerved her. He grew quieter, sticking close to her side, even as they rode a small roller coaster, his laughter subdued. By late afternoon, they returned to the resort emotionally drained. Malcolm was waiting in the suite, his expression grim. "Find anything?" Samantha asked, setting down their bags. "Plenty," he replied, keeping his voice low as Elijah went to wash up. "The hotel's security is a joke. No cameras in key hallways, blind spots around the pool. I saw Marks and Riley arguing with the manager, Karen Foster, in the parking lot. She looked furious, like they'd crossed a line." Elijah emerged, climbing onto the couch between them. "Dad, the kids at the park today, they were different," he said, his voice small. "Different? How?" Buddy Malcolm asked gently. "They pointed at me and whispered. One boy said his dad told him not to play with people like me." Samantha's chest tightened, and she pulled Elijah close, meeting Malcolm's pained gaze. "I tried to ignore them, like you said," Elijah continued, his eyes glistening. "But there were so many. Even the grown-ups looked at us funny." Malcolm's jaw clenched. "You did nothing wrong, son. Those people, they're the ones with the problem." Samantha stroked Elijah's hair. "Some people let fear make them act unkind, sweetie, but we're stronger than that. We're not letting them win." That evening, Samantha met Cassie Flores at a crowded downtown coffee shop chosen for its public setting and multiple exits. Cassie arrived on time, her notebook tucked under her arm, her sharp eyes scanning the room. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, setting up a small recorder. "I've been chasing this story for months. Systematic harassment of minorities at local hotels, especially by Marks and Riley. But every time I get close, evidence disappears, sources back out." Samantha leaned forward, keeping her voice low. "What do you know about them?" Cassie glanced around before answering. "They target families like yours. People they think won't fight back. The hotels play along, burying complaints to keep the police happy. There are rumors of bigger crimes, money laundering, drug trafficking, through service entrances. The resorts are perfect cover." Samantha shared their experiences, the pool confrontation, the threatening note, the park's hostile stares. "They're escalating," she said. "They know I'm FBI now." Cassie's eyes widened. "That changes everything. They weren't expecting someone with your resources." She showed Samantha photos on her phone, Other families targeted altered police reports, matched security footage, timestamps. "Why hasn't anyone stopped them?" Elijah asked, his voice cutting through. He'd been so quiet, drawing on a napkin, they'd almost forgotten he was there. Cassie softened. "They're good at silencing people, honey. My editor won't run stories without hard proof, and that proof keeps vanishing." Samantha's phone buzzed a message from an unknown number. "Back off or your kid pays." Her blood ran cold, but she kept her face neutral, showing it to Cassie. "They're desperate," Cassie said. "Your video from the pool is everywhere now. They can't control the narrative anymore." Back at the resort, Samantha's unease grew. A housekeeper accidentally tried entering their room despite the "Do Not Disturb" sign, her eyes avoiding Samantha's. In the lobby, she spotted Lorraine Carter, a middle-aged black woman from the breakfast room lingering near the coffee station. Lorraine caught her eye, giving a subtle nod before approaching. "I'm Lorraine," she whispered, pretending to add cream to her cup. "I work at the hospital, lived here my whole life. I know those officers. They framed my husband, James, 3 years ago, planted evidence, falsified reports. I've been gathering proof." Samantha's pulse quickened. "What kind of proof?" Lorraine's eyes darted to where Marks and Riley sat at their usual corner table. "Security footage from the hospital parking lot shows them beating a teenager, then lying about it. I made copies before they could delete it. I've been waiting for the right moment, the right people." "Why us?" Samantha asked, stirring her coffee to maintain cover. "Because you fought back. And you're FBI. They can't bury this if you're involved. They arranged to meet in the basement laundry room in 20 minutes. Samantha returned to the table, whispering the plan to Malcolm. He nodded, his eyes scanning the room. "Be careful," he murmured. In the laundry room, the air was thick with humidity and the rumble of industrial machines. Lorraine stood folding sheets, a USB drive hidden in her palm. "It's all here," she murmured, slipping it to Samantha as they passed. 6 months of evidence, names, dates, patterns they tried to bury. Samantha tucked the drive into her pocket, her heart pounding. "Thank you, Lorraine. This could change everything." Lorraine's eyes were fierce. "Promise me you won't let them silence this. My James is innocent. Nobody would listen. Maybe now they will. We'll make them listen," Samantha vowed. They folded laundry for a few minutes to avoid suspicion, the hiss of steam presses masking their words. Back in the suite, Samantha locked the door, her mind racing. Malcolm took Elijah to the arcade to keep him distracted while she plugged the USB into her laptop. The footage was damning Marks and Riley beating a defenseless teen, their laughter audible as he begged them to stop. Folders detailed other incidents, false arrests, buried complaints, all linked to the hotel. Samantha cross-referenced names with her FBI database, her breath catching as patterns emerged. Marks and Riley weren't just rogue cops. They were part of a network, protected by someone higher up. A knock at the door startled her. "Room service," a voice called. Samantha checked the peephole, seeing a nervous-looking staff member with a tray. She opened the door cautiously, accepting the tray, but blocking entry. The note attached read, "Compliments of management. We regret any misunderstandings." Samantha scoffed, tossing it aside. "They're trying to buy us off," she muttered, securing the USB in a hidden pocket. That night, as Elijah slept, Samantha and Malcolm sat up planning. "We need more witnesses," she said. "Lorraine's evidence is a start, but we need others to come forward." Malcolm nodded. "The hotel staff knows something, they're too scared to talk. And Karen Foster, the manager, she's in deep." Samantha's phone pinged a new message from Cassie. "Meet me tomorrow. I found another victim. This goes higher than you think." As they prepared for bed, Samantha checked the windows, her FBI instincts on high alert. The resort's luxury felt like a trap, now every shadow a potential threat. But the USB in her pocket was a weapon, and she was ready to use it to bring Marks Riley and their protectors down. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the Taylors' suite, casting a warm glow that felt at odds with the tension still lingering from the past few days. Samantha sat at the dining table, her laptop closed for the first time in hours, the USB drive from Lorraine Carter safely tucked away in a hidden compartment of her bag. Elijah was sprawled on the pull-out couch, sketching on his tablet, his small face more relaxed, but still carrying the weight of their ordeal. Malcolm stood by the door, speaking in hushed tones with an FBI agent who'd arrived to escort them to a secure briefing. "We've got enough to move forward," Samantha said quietly, joining him as the agent stepped into the hallway. "Lorraine's footage, the hotel records, the witness statements, it's airtight." Malcolm nodded his eyes, scanning the room one last time. "And your video from the pool, plus Elijah's recording of Riley's threats. They're done." Elijah looked up, his pencil pausing. "Are the bad cops going to jail?" Mom Samantha crossed to him, kneeling to meet his gaze. "We're working on it, sweetie. They can't hurt anyone anymore." Her voice was steady, but inside she felt the fire of determination burning brighter than ever. The FBI field office was a hive of activity when they arrived, agents moving purposefully through the corridors, their voices clipped with urgency. The Taylors were ushered into a conference room where federal prosecutors, Department of Justice officials, and local law enforcement liaisons waited. A large screen displayed a timeline of incidents, each pinned with photos, documents, and video stills from Lorraine's USB and Samantha's recordings. Samantha stood before the panel, her posture commanding despite the bruises on her arm from the pool confrontation. Officers Greg Marks and Riley, in collusion with hotel manager Karen Foster, ran a systematic operation targeting minority guests at Lakeside Resort. She began, her voice clear and authoritative. They used intimidation, physical assault, and falsified reports to drive families out, burying complaints with the hotel's cooperation. She clicked to a slide showing bank records. Monthly payments from the hotel's discretionary fund to Mark X and Riley, disguised as security fees, ensured their silence. In return, they protected the hotel from scrutiny, possibly tied to larger criminal activities like money laundering. The lead prosecutor, Sarah Chen, leaned forward. "And the scope of victims? At least 25 families over 3 years, Samantha replied, gesturing to a list of names. Lorraine Carter's evidence was critical. She documented similar incidents after her husband James was wrongfully imprisoned. Her hospital footage shows Marks and Riley assaulting a teenager, then falsifying reports to justify it. Malcolm, seated beside Elijah, squeezed his son's hand as Samantha continued. The hotel maintained 2 sets of records. The official log showed no complaints, but our tech team recovered deleted files, over 60 incidents of harassment or assault, all dismissed by Foster. Elijah's eyes widened as he listened, his small FBI visitor badge pinned proudly to his shirt. Chen nodded grimly. And the community response? Samantha glanced at her family. The viral video from the pool incident broke the wall of silence. Families are coming forward, and hotel staff like housekeeping supervisor Mrs. Washington have given statements about being coerced into destroying evidence. Outside the conference room, news vans lined the street, their cameras trained on the building. The story had exploded nationally with headlines like FBI agent exposes corrupt cops at luxury resort, dominating every major outlet. Cassie Flores stood among the reporters, her notebook filled with quotes from witnesses who'd finally found the courage to speak. A junior agent entered, holding a tablet. Marks and Riley were arraigned this morning, no bail. flight risk, and danger to the community. Fosters in custody, cooperating with prosecutors. Scattered applause broke out, but Samantha's focus shifted to Lorraine, who stood in the hallway, surrounded by other victims' families. "What about them?" she asked Chen. "The ones too afraid to come forward before." "We're reaching out," Chen assured her. "Carter's working with our victim services unit to document their stories. The statute of limitations hasn't expired on most cases. We're also reviewing wrongful convictions, starting with James Carter." Elijah tugged at Samantha's sleeve. "Mom, look," he whispered, pointing to the lobby windows where a crowd had gathered: hotel guests, local residents, even some staff who'd been silent for years. Lorraine was speaking to them, her voice steady, as she shared her husband's story. "They're listening now," Elijah said, his eyes bright with hope. Samantha smiled, ruffling his hair. "Because we didn't give up, sweetie." The briefing concluded with plans for federal oversight of the local police department, mandatory training hiring reviews, and a 5-year monitoring period. The hotel chain announced a victim compensation fund and civil rights audits, their stock plummeting as the public demanded accountability. As the Taylors left the conference room, the crowd in the lobby fell silent, then erupted in applause. An elderly guest from the pool incident approached, her voice trembling. "You gave us all courage," she said, clasping Samantha's hand. "Thank you for not backing down." Malcolm wrapped an arm around Elijah, who walked tall between his parents, clutching his tablet, where he'd saved his recording of Riley's threats. Outside, Cassie's camera crew captured their exit, broadcasting live, as supporters held signs reading, "Justice for the Taylors" and "End Corruption Now." The evening air was cool, the sunset painting the sky in fierce reds and golds. Back home, weeks later, the Taylors' kitchen felt like a sanctuary, the morning sun warming the familiar space. Malcolm sipped coffee, reading a newspaper headline, "Federal Oversight Begins at Troubled Police Department." Samantha, in her teaching clothes, leaned over his shoulder. Lorraine texted, she said, showing him a photo of James Carter walking free, his arm around Lorraine. His conviction was overturned. Mark Sex and Riley planted the evidence. Elijah bounded downstairs, waving a certificate from his school. "Ms. Rodriguez gave me this for courage." He announced, his grin wide. The certificate praised his quick thinking with the phone recording, and Samantha hugged him tightly. "We're so proud, honey." Malcolm pulled an envelope from his briefcase. "The FBI wants us at headquarters next week. They're giving me a community service award for supporting you, but it's really for all of us. Lorraine, too, for her years of evidence." The doorbell rang, a delivery of flowers from Samantha's school, where her students had created a wall of supportive messages. "Even the superintendent's using our story in training," she said, arranging the bouquet. And Foster's turned over records from 3 other hotels she managed. "This goes deep." Elijah looked up from his cereal. "Can we go to the pool today? Coach says I missed too much practice." Samantha hesitated, then smiled. "Let's make it a celebration." That afternoon, they arrived at their community pool to find friends Lorraine James and other families waiting. Elijah's swim team cheered as he walked in, cannonballing into the water with unrestrained joy. The atmosphere was festive. Healing parents shared stories, kids of all backgrounds played together, and a local civil rights organizer handed out Know Your Rights cards. Lorraine introduced James to the group, his smile radiant as he thanked the Taylors. "You made people believe justice was possible," he said quietly. Samantha watched Elijah race across the pool, his confident strokes free of the fear he'd carried at the resort. "Remember how we used to watch our backs?" she murmured to Malcolm, always worried about being targeted. He squeezed her hand. "Now we're watched for the right reasons." The lesson wasn't lost on them or on Elijah. Their stand had shown him that courage could change not just their lives, but an entire communities. It taught him to speak up, to document injustice, to stand tall no matter who tried to push him down. Samantha addressed the crowd, her voice steady. What happened to us wasn't just about one family. It was about a system that let hate and corruption thrive. But we proved that standing together, families, neighbors, even kids like Elijah can tear that system down. She looked at her son, who waved from the pool. Teach your kids their rights. Teach them to be brave, to record what's wrong, to tell their stories. That's how we build a world where no one has to fear a day at the pool. The crowd nodded, some wiping tears, others clapping. The ripples of their fight were spreading. 5 more wrongfully convicted men had their cases reopened, and the community was organizing to ensure lasting change. As the sun dipped low, casting dancing patterns on the water, Elijah's laughter mixed with the chatter of new allies. The Taylors had turned fear into strength, silence into action, and a vacation gone wrong into a lesson for a generation. Justice starts when you refuse to back down, and it grows when you teach others to do the same.